Well, guys, welcome in, welcome in. How are you on this Sunday night? I hope this finds you well. First and foremost, my heart goes out to everybody in LA, Palisades, every part of California that was touched and is being ravaged by this hellish beast they call fire. Do not get me started. I could do a whole show on this off the top of my head. I mean, I have been glued to this thing. This has been enough's enough. But tonight, let's just put our hearts and thoughts out there to try to just stop this and end it. I mean, for the wildlife and dear animals alone, let alone scared people. And, not everybody out there has means to have a warm bed. And that being said, let's continue prayers for North Carolina, Tennessee, and anybody else affected by this storm that doesn't have heat. Please see my episodes on clay pot heaters and lard candles. That's not a joke. I've been trying to keep people warm for 5 years, if not more. Loads of episodes on tricks and all kinds of things. It is absolutely, Ted, without a doubt. I like the ballet dancers too, Mud. And commenting on something you were talking about in the chat, if Lee has his channel on subscriber only, just subscribe and you'll be back in the chat. More than likely, he's doing that to try to get people to, it's self-explanatory. You know what I mean? To subscribe. So just subscribe. Hit the button. And all that'll be no problem anymore. So welcome in. Like I said, my thoughts have been involved in since I saw the first spark, let's say, and the peeling back of the charade and the chicanery and the lawfare and the everything that's going on. So for the people that are going through this again, listen, don't hesitate. If something like that's going on, don't just expect everything to be okay and that somebody else has got it. Go rent a truck, throw your stuff in the back of a truck and get the hell out of there. What are you going to do? Spend a couple nights in a hotel room by accident, at least you got out and you're ahead of the craziness trying to get out of a big city. That's the thing, man. If you're out in a big city, it's hard to, when they yell fire, no pun intended, in a crowded theater, it gets pretty ugly. Whether you're in a stadium, a theater, or a big city trying to get out on infrastructure that was built like in the 50s with the taxes that Californians pay. No water in the hydrants. But by God, they made sure those little bastards were painted red, white, and rainbow, if you know what I mean. They cared more about what was on the outside than what was on the inside. And isn't that just materialistic and several other things? So tonight, there are still people fleeing their homes and wondering if their homes. I mean, I saw poor James Woods for, I think, a day and a half. He thought his whole house had burnt to the ground because he knew his neighborhood was on fire. And his neighbors were saying, everything's gone. And then he found out it was still standing. I mean, the smoke and damage and all that, but it was still standing. And just the amount of garbage social media was throwing at this man. It never ceases to amaze me, the vermin that can come out of the cracks when stuff like this happens. But at the same time, you always have so much more good. So, and we know that the good outweighs the bad, and one spark of light, extinguishes the darkness, right? So welcome to everybody in here. That being said, my prayers out, and I got to do a show on it. I've just uncovered so much chicanery, and at what point in time does a coincidence, does it just stop being a coincidence? So please check where you are, make sure you're safe, make sure you have what you need, make sure you're staying vigilant, what's going on in your area, what's going on when you're working, where your loved ones are, and what's going down, because you're the only one looking out for you, and your tribe. So hang in there, and no more false sense of security, thinking that your town's got it, and your reservoirs are full, and your taxes are going to take care of your neighborhood and keeping you safe, and your school's good, and your education for your children, um, the very best available, and that facade should be shattered, like the Pope's little silver hammer on Christmas Eve, opening portals to, you know, God knows what. How y'all doing tonight? I'm trying to be in a good mood. I swear I am. How are y'all? Good? I'm gonna eat a cookie. I'm gonna eat a good cookie too. And I didn't even have to bake it. It still might be warm in the middle. Treat yourself to something nice. Have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, fry up some bacon, do whatever you need to do. Look, we're gonna get through this. And it's I thought about tonight doing a show on all of that and the fires and everything. Believe me, I could have. And I'm thinking about doing one for tomorrow night. It might have to be on Rumble, half of it, because, but then again, what are they going to do? So, because I really like to get the information out, and that's the main thing. Here's the deal. You don't have to think like me. You don't have to agree with me. I could be wrong. I could find out I'm wrong 5 minutes after I say something, and I'll correct it. What I don't like is to have, I won't intentionally bring you stuff that's garbage for clickbait or any other reason. I'm not that person. I don't even push my t-shirts. It took me, 4 years to buy one of my, and I didn't even buy it. It was given to me for Christmas. So, I'm so bad at this. I just don't want to put, people feel bad. They don't have the money and they want to help, or they want to get a t-shirt and they think about it, but something else comes along. That's me. So I don't over promote. I don't do this and say, you have to buy my book, or I'm not going to finish telling you the story. You have to get the book to finish it. I'm not that person, so I'm not here to do this for that is what I'm saying. And I've been sitting, trying to think of different things to do, and we're doing good. We're doing good. I've got, thank you to all my members on Rumble. That's what's getting us through that. Just you guys that are there, that is helping me cover, the stuff there. So we're getting through the whole YouTube debacle that happened and trying to switch over. But at the same time, it's like they say that one door slams shut or stops, or, you hit an obstacle, another one opens if you keep faith and you just keep trying stuff. Well, that's what we did. So thank you for being over there on Rumble. It doesn't cost anything. I'm not telling everybody to, do Rumble rants because YouTube cut me down or anything. If they feel like you can, fine, throw $1 at me. That's fantastic. It's going right back into the show. And the whole reason we're doing that is so we can get together and do these things and talk about ghosts and everything else. But it's not just ghosts. It's not just paranormal. It's not just supernatural. It's not just true crime and who's Jack the Ripper and, did Lizzie do it? That kind of thing. Sometimes did he do it? Did he? Oh, God, that's not funny either. Because here's the thing. We can't sit here and pretend that there isn't stuff going on in the world. And if I can get out information that's going to help you in the spiritual warfare, I'm going to give it to you. So there is going to be more current events and things like that, and shows popping up during the week. And the members, and we're working on, that's growing. We're going to do that where we do a drawing. I think the first thing is going to be the books. They 6 to 8 weeks on the books. So when they get here, we can do that. And other things. But the point is we can get together in free speech on Rumble and talk about what we want to talk about, and give each other maybe life-saving information for, I don't know, or how to, whatever it may be that pops up in the chat. Hey, what's going on over here? Did you guys hear this? What's going, holy mackerel. I think 2 weeks ago we were doing drones, and then we were doing plasma orbs, and then we were doing drones and plasma orbs, and then something else happened, and now this and the next thing, and there was something in the middle. What was in the middle? Oh, the Cybertruck and the Trump Tower and the New Orleans, and then and I told you it's going to be like that, like drinking from a fire hose, you know. And sometimes we're going to be talking about ghosts, and sometimes we're going to be talking about that. And I really, honest to God, as wacky as it sounds, I think it's all connected because we are in spiritual warfare, and that hits us all different ways. And we've been talking on this channel for a while about how spirit, the veil's thinning, of course. I think everybody feels it. And more spirits have been coming over to help and to try to communicate. So I thought, heck, let's put this in here tonight and try to distract from all the craziness and try to hone our skills a little bit and talk about how spirits communicate. Are we catching the signs? Are we catching the angel numbers and the 111s? Are we seeing ghosts? Are we getting full apparitions, more shadows in the hall? Are we maybe getting communications via phones, or cell phones, or text messages, or computers, or anything like that? So I gathered some stories together. Some of them are we showed for the first time a couple of years ago, but they were old favorites, and they also illustrate illustrate certain parts of this so very well. So if you have seen one, there's an old favorite in here, but you can't get better as an example for what ghosts are capable of, and the amazing part about the paranormal supernatural. We always seem to forget that. Of course it's scary, and there's scary stuff here, and there is stuff under the bed and in the closet. There's no doubt. We just got a thing on my phone today that said it was an alert. What was it? Blew my mind. It was in the kitchen. You get alert on your phone. Dreams, absolutely, Anne. Absolutely, dreams. And what the hell did it say? How did it say? Oh, for Asbury Park, New Jersey, be on the lookout. You have a serial killer in the neighborhood. What? The cookie got hard. 1 minute. Excuse me. I'm sorry. That's chocolate chip. So anyhow, yeah, the serial killer in the neighborhood. Be on the lookout. The bolo for the serial killer in Asbury Park. Okay, great. What are the details? Man with a machete. Go around knocking on doors, helping old ladies with their groceries at the grocery store, and then hacking them up. I'm thinking to myself, that's what was missing. We needed a little something else. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So what do you do when things get nuts? Are you a light worker? Well, that's like a call to arms, right? I'm serious. Unfortunately, this is what you picked. Your soul picked this. Your soul. I'm sorry. What is that quote that we love so much? Well, what is it? Let me get it right. Don't bitch to your spirit guides about the road you're on. That's your own asphalt. So here we are. We're in the middle of whatever apocalyptic son of a bitch this is. Our timing is just impeccable. There's just shit going on everywhere, and it's all crazy. It's all batshit crazy, and stuck in the middle with you. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. That's what light workers do. We come in the middle of the chaos and the rubble and the screaming, and we go, hey, no more of this. We'll get through. We got to stick together, and we'll push through and rebuke this madness. We just have to do it. We have to keep the lights on, because the alternative is unthinkable. That means the lights go out. So here we are, candles in the wind, as we may be. If one of us goes out, the other one's got to relight that flame. So keep your brothers and sisters up. Okay? Come in here in this chat. Meet us during the week. Come in and just, hey, don't overlook us. You see, we have a show or whatever. Don't do it for me. Come in this chat and say hi to everybody. Can't stay. Folding laundry, doing whatever, on the way to whatever it may be. Love and light. Tap into it because you're leaving a little. It's like that. What were those things, guys? Where you take one, leave one, like a borrow book. Those things along. I love those in neighborhoods where they have the lending library. We buy, leave a book, take a book, whatever, stuff like that. And you think that we couldn't in this society have stuff like that again? Yes, we can. But the only way we can have stuff like that again is if light workers keep the lights on. Crazy's going to still go on. But when all the dust settles and all the smoke clears, and the crazies are done, hacking each other, whatever the hell they're doing, we'll be back here holding the light, going, you ready to listen now? Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it's going to hurt a while. Stupid hurts when it gets fixed. But you survived it. And now we're going to start this world over here where we can have stuff like leave a book, take a book. We need a canned food, take a can of food, leave a can. Community helping community. People not kicking the crap out of each other in the streets because all that's just been beat out of people. But it's not an easy road getting to the other side of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So stay out of it. Put your light out in it. Do what you can. Try not to lose your mind over stuff you can't fix. Put some light on it and move on to the next thing. Because it will be bright again. And it's always darkest before the dawn. As dark as it may seem right now, it can always get worse. So just prepare for that. Know that. And that's why I'm doing this tonight too, because you might look at this and say, okay, well, ghosts communicate this way, and this way, and spirits say this, this is how this goes down, and I'm pretty much stuck in my, okay. But here's the thing. You're never too good at your trade or your hobby or your craft or whatever it may be, or your interest, to not go back to the beginning and the basics and just go over it again. Because some of those things that seem simple and some of those things that seem to go without saying are worth revisiting, especially if you have new eyes, a couple of decades later or whatever. I mean, was this the time you thought about, hey, how has communication for ghosts, as far as what they had to work with, whatever that may be or mean, changed in 100 years? Now, I know we've done shows like that. It might not have been exactly pinpointed that, but the information was in there. We had Alexander Graham Bell doing his thing. We had, so many other people doing theirs. I think Tesla had one. We know that Price was doing it in the late 20s. Many other people. And even in photography and everything else, because that's communicating. When you show up in a photo, like, hey, I'm here. That you could say that's a type of communication. They've communicated by touch on the shoulder. Hey, I'm here. A whisper in the ear. Showing up at the foot of your bed. Still one of the top 5 creepiest things. Just it is. Admit it. I think it's only just under the hand that might come up from under the bed and grab your foot that's hanging over the edge. Half of you just went, ooh, I felt it. I went, but that's the thing, going back and revisiting some things that seem, oops, I'm caught in my wire. I'm caught in my own wire. And revisiting things that seem familiar, You know what I mean? It can sharpen those tools that we're always talking about in your toolbox, in your spiritual toolbox, right? And it can help to do that, to sometimes take out your gear and sharpen it up and reorganize it, and oil this, and polish that, and just get everything squared away, because when you need it, it'll be there. You don't just get something and put it up and never check on it or whatever. How many of you go around and make sure all the stuff is right, exactly where you had it, like your flashlight, or your might be a home defense utensil or something like that, and you're always putting your hand, making sure it's right there. It's muscle memory. You're creating muscle memory, and you need to do that in the paranormal as well, right? So you go back and you look at those things, and you think, okay, well, I just had a crazy dream. I've heard in the past week, I think, let's be honest about this, probably at the least 4 conversations, either through social media or actual people talking in a grocery store and overhearing a conversation or whatever. People having dreams, vivid dreams, falling out of bed, somebody coming to visit, some other weird thing happening, but it's so real. What do you think that is, guys? Do you think perhaps the veil is thinning? That things are accelerating, whether it's a time push or I don't know what you would call it, that would push us into the next phase. There's so many scientific, I don't want to call it one thing and be off. You know what I mean? You definitely feel a shift, whether that's into another timeline or another phase, whatever it may be. You can feel it kind of rolling. And that's what I'm talking about with everything's crazy out there. Okay, if you're involved in it, you've got to do the best you can to take care of you, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe. All right, that goes without being said. But if you're okay and all your stuff is squared away, then you can work on strengthening your inner self and your tools that you're going to need, because a lot of people aren't going to be getting through stuff so easy. And if you have knowledge and you have ways of getting out of that, climbing out of that dark hole that they're going to be in, we need to be using them, because that's going to bring them into the light. And then we got more people on our team, because now they've gone through whatever they just went through and they're ready to listen. And you have all those tools ready. You've just gone through them, done a little refresher course and everything else. And you're ready right on the surface to start helping them. You can't help other people if you don't take care of yourself. You can't mentally help another human being through their crisis if you're all washed out. I have people that I have to literally avoid at certain times. Like I see them coming and I have to oof, can't do it today, because it's like we're all cars on the highway, and when we stop at if we stop at a red light or stop at a whatever, and that car pulls up next to you, it's like people are like that. They just kind of pull up next to you in your day for just a few minutes, and when they leave, you feel drained. You feel like they took part of your gas tank with them. Like, man, my tank was full before you pulled up next to me. Now I'm down a quarter. That's what it feels like with people sometimes. Energy vampires, they don't even realize it. And now they're extremely needy. They're extremely scared. All their stuff is all off kilter. You have some people waking up and asking questions, go, something ain't right. Wow, you think? And some that are just, still going on about, it's going to take something else to get them to pay attention, right? But all this has something to do with light workers. It has something to do with people with abilities, because your stuff should be just vibrating on 11 by now. And it's extremely draining, is it not? So I also want you to think about how your spirit guides communicate with you. And right now I feel so much energy being pulled here. Do you guys notice I have a hard time? I can't look at the camera. I say this all the time, but I'm so drawn to the energy. I mean, I'm leaning into the energy of the chat. The chat's putting energy back. And I know that sounds like a line, and it sounds just so creepy if you don't understand what I'm saying, but it's so true, and it's a pull. And it's different than what I just said, as far as like a car pulling up or a person standing next to you, and when they walk away, you feel a little bit drained. Like, what the hell was that? You know? But there are people in your life like that, and you know damn well what I'm talking about. Coming out, oh, not her. You know, oh God, not him. Oh geez, what, you know? He thinks he's funny, but he's such a pain in the ass. You know, and if you're ever in retail, or if you're in any kind of thing, or you're in your own business or whatever, you got to put up with a little just to get through it. You know what I'm talking about. I go out the back door. I just can't even anymore. I can't. But I've made sure that I'm in a position where I can do that, because I spent a lot of time stuck behind a counter, stuck behind a bar, stuck, you know what I mean? And had to have conversations with, as customer service manager for a pet store, a huge pet store, the complaints, you know, she didn't cut my dog right now. She did, and you know, fill out the paperwork, and you know, dead fish, and you know, the snake ate my, you know, whatever. It's terrible. And then you go to crafting, and you get questions like, "Do you have glue?" 157 different kinds. What are you gluing? Well, isn't all glue the same? No. Jeez. I know it sounds crazy, but you know, in silly questions like, you're on the absolute edge. You're trying to do all this stuff that corporate wants, and all this, you know, all this timed crap, and you're dealing with the public, which is just so much fun. And then some lunatic comes up and asks you with a serious face, like it's like if they don't get the answer to this question and the product, that they're just going to just melt away like the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz. You know, just melt right into the floor, because it's just the last thing that they can handle. You know, and they come up with their Coach bags and all this other stuff, their big hair and their nails and their toes that match. And then they look so serious at you and ask you stupid ass question like, "Do you have adult coloring books for children?" Ma'am? Excuse me? Could you repeat that, please? Do you have, and then they're looking at me like I'm stupid. And they're already yelling at me. Not a good choice, but ma'am, do you hear yourself? I have children's coloring books. I have adult coloring books. And they're not, and it just sounds so creepy, because adult children, you know, how stupid is this? People just have too much time on their hands and using it to make me crazy. So don't let them make you crazy. Okay. So we're going to hone some tools. We're going to watch some ghost stories. And I want to say hi to everybody. I know it took a long time, but I had to get all that out. Thank you for listening. Glad you were here for it. Good night, everybody. Mud, it's so good to see you. Ann, that's you. Isn't that you, Ann? Miss Ann, good to see you. It takes two hands. If you got a pipe? What kind of pipe? Oh, I've got a lovely pipe. I have to show you. I don't want to get it down, but wait a minute. Maybe I can. You want to see my pipe? It was gifted to me at a powwow by a wonderful elder. It's all bone. Can you see it? Let's see. It's a beaver tooth. It's a medicine pouch. It's hand painted. It's got red tail hawk feathers. Got the rabbit fur. See, isn't that pretty? It's gorgeous. That's only used for ceremony, though. And I'm sure you're not talking about that kind of pipe, are you, kiddo? Yes. Can't believe I got that down and back without knocking everything over. Hey, Echo. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It is. And it's wonderful that it's, you know, it's got a lot of, it's got a lot of good medicine on it. Trust me. It's really good. And, you know, anytime you gift something, it's like the blessing on it is even more so, you know, it just magnifies all the, you know, wonderful vibes in it and everything. Thank you so much, Vixen. How are you tonight, sweetheart? And Henry, how you doing? What do you got? No coloring books. If I want a picture, I'll draw. Exactly. But you have no idea. It was the most number one shoplifted thing in our store for the longest time. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Because not only these, oh, just please, I can't. I don't want to talk about the public. I'll go nuts. I'm not really in it that much anymore, which is interesting. It's probably the best thing. I think Creator put me here because just get her out. She's not going to be able to deal with this if she has to be out front facing people on the daily. Something bad's going to happen. It's like, whoo! I was ticking like in by 2015. I think I was ticking to the point where my spirit guides just took me and said, nope, 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 nope. We're going to get you some. We're going to keep moving you around and we keep getting you in the very back of the room somewhere in a factory or, that's kind of where I am now. I mean, it's a lovely little florist, but I'm in my own little spot, I like that. I could stay quiet and just listen to my stuff and just pound out flowers and just make people happy all day long or, with flowers. It's very nice. It's very nice. It's hard work, but it's nice. Steady now. Steady now. Ted, how are you? How's Lord Connor? Good? Good, good, good. And green, that's it. Yep, I got you. No funny honey either. Nope, I don't. Nope, 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 nope. I don't even have funny honey in my tea tonight. I went complete Paul Newman black tea, straight up with sugar in the raw. It's very tasty though. Yep, still learning how to cure. You know what? You got to ask a Native American, sweetie. I've never done it myself, but tobacco is an art. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. All right, guys. So, hey, Scott, how you doing, sweetheart? Hey, Froze, I see you in here too. So let's get started. I'm going to play you a little short thing. And this is kind of interesting because, like I said, I pulled up some of the older ones, but I don't think you'll mind because it really does go with the flow of everything. Because again, when I started digging into this and thinking about all the ways that they communicate, so telepathic is the number one thing that came to my mind because, as I mentioned earlier, dreams, people are saying they're having more dreams. Are you guys having more lucid dreams? Anybody in the chat? Put it in the chat here if you are. If you're having message dreams. Is anybody having any dreams where something that feels like a spirit guide or, now that could be anybody or anything. It could be an animal talking to you, like, could be like the caterpillar on the mushroom, talking to Alice. It could be, somebody you recognize, whatever. There's really no, let's start out with no limit lines because right now anything could be. Are you Mud? Good. Echo? Very messagey. Echo? Good, good, good. Oh, you too, Catherine? I just think it's the times. I really, really do. And if you want to open yourself up to that, again, put protection down because, listen, the other side is jumping. I wanted to tell you this before we get started. I wanted to put it at the end, but I'm afraid I'll forget it, and I could not find the vid to show you. But Sean Ryan on his show had a wonderful priest on there, and he was an exorcist, demonologist, and I think he's does the regular 9 to 5 as well. Is it 9 to 5 or is that 24/7? Should be 24/7, wouldn't you think? I don't know. Do priests get time off? Anyway, doesn't matter. The point he was trying to make was, I think Sean Ryan asked him, have you ever had an exorcist that you couldn't complete, or an exorcism that you couldn't completely wipe out? He said, yes. Sean was surprised by that because he thought it would be a nope, we always win. He said, nope, yeah, this one was bad. And he said, he said, I'll tell you how it happened. He said, this kid, they were talking about telephones and, cell phones and how the internet can be good or bad. Depends on how you use it, right? But they were also insinuating, as I do, that trust me, the bad side can use it too. And I don't mean just the obvious stuff like porn and gambling and addiction to binge watching Netflix, for Pete's sakes, or whatever it may be, taking you away from what you should be doing or should be paying attention to or what is really of value. That can be considered, of course. But what I'm talking about is the other side using the electronic connection. Remember, I talked about this at Christmas too, when I was talking about don't watch the Pope live do this, opening portals. Please don't on live television. We've talked about it, touched on it many a time. But he was talking about it, and I agreed with everything he said. And then he said, this kid, he said kid, I believe he did, was working on meditations and was listening to videos on the internet. And he did this one where he tried to open his third eye through meditation. And he said he could literally feel the demon come through and hit him. And he said he worked on that young man for 2 years and couldn't completely finish it. So take that as the warning that it is. You have to be careful what you pick up. I remember, this is even before, gosh, were computers really out? They probably were out, but we sure didn't have one yet. So it must have been, maybe 89, 90, somewhere along the line. And there was phone numbers you could call. I think it had something to do with music. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it was some new thing that came out. Like, remember when they had those 800 numbers? Not those 800 numbers. Get your head out of the gutter. The 800 numbers that you could call up and get information and things like that. So anyway, it was something like that. And I called up, and there was, gosh, I can't remember exactly what the beginning was like, but it was just your regular, please hang on for such and such. And when the bell, the thing rang, or the tone, whatever it was, went off, and whatever it was going to be like a song or prayer or lyrics. I can't even remember what it was. There was just chanting. It was chanting. And I'm like, oh, I recognized it right away. It's going way back. So many different things like that. I've had people who called me up that were running radio stations and these call-in shows that people do, from broadcast to regular radio, all kinds of stuff. And when people were calling in, they were getting that. So the radio station somehow they had infiltrated that and were putting all this chanting on it. There was another one with learning a language, and they were telling him it was one thing, and they were teaching him spells that were actually getting the person to agree with putting almost like a curse on themselves. It was just terrible. So you really have to watch these things. I mean, now it's the new scam, I think, this is way beyond scam, but the new scam is they send you a package in the mail, and you get you open the package, you don't know where it came from. There's a slip of paper in there. It says, if you want to know who sent you the package, scan the QR code thing, and then they suck everything out of your phone. They got everything, all your information. So don't do any of these things. It goes in, it goes out. Evil has learned how to use this stuff for a weapon. So protect yourself. You can sage your things. You can put, protection prayers on it. You can put your own light down on it. Use the heavy stuff. Use the good stuff. You know what I mean? This is nothing to play with. And watch your kids too. Think about it. Think about all of that. So I tell you all that to let you know how sharp you got to be. If you're going to be a light worker, and you're going to be a light worker in this, and the spiritual warfare, and if you got eyes and ears and or paying attention at all, you got to see it all going down around you. And we know what survives that, and that's the light. Just be a mountain of strength. You're going to have times where you need a little bit of help. That's what I said in the beginning. So you come in here, you get it, you tap into the chat, you talk, say hi to your friends, and you lift each other up, and then you go back out there and you start, get back in bed again. Keep going. And we'll try to meet throughout the week. And if you have other things that you can dip into that you walk away feeling better after you've been there or talked to, you do that too. But try to avoid the things that are draining. If it's too much news or too much headlines or too much, the inner tubes or whatever it is, stop it. Go do something that fills you. Go bake something. Go visit a friend. Go whatever it may be that fills you. And you're gonna have to keep doing this. Maybe it's adult coloring books. Whatever it does, if you feel better afterwards. This is what I'm saying. And you need to have lots of those things. Okay? All right. So our first thing, I pulled a couple of these for you. Can I do that one first? Yeah. So some obvious things are showing up as just apparitions. And it's not just people that show up to assure us that they're there or to let us know that they're there. They might not even be aware of you. So if it's a loved one or a loved pet, sometimes we just catch it on camera, or we catch it out of the corner of our eye, or we hear the one I hear the most is the chain, the collar jingling, or the toenails going down the hallway or over the kitchen floor or across the bed. Those are spirit communications. And one way that 4-legged as well as 2-legged spirits, visitation, and earthbound ghosts, 2 different things. I'll explain that here in a minute. And that's how one way that we catch it. So this is a cute one. We've shown it before, but I think it's really cute. I don't have an explanation for it. I love it. And the first time I saw it, I felt it was, I got a real good energy from it. I hope you will too. Lots of energy. That's for sure, Mud. So tell me what you think about this one. This is pet owner captures a ghost of her dead cat. There goes one kitty. It's showing up. Now watch the couch. Look at the couch. You see it? Look at him. And she comes in and looks. It doesn't even see him. Is that crazy or what? That's from Paranormal Globe. Picked that up from the OP. But crazy, right? Let him back what? Oh, here we go. Echo Leaf. My dog that is passed visits me all the time if I ask. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Yes, Echo. I love that you said that. Absolutely, Scott. Nature fills me. Certain people exhaust me. That's the best sum up of however long it took me to say all that. Very well said, Scott. We should have just started with that and moved on. But, it's being honest. And, when we get together too, what happens to me, especially after a week of the kind of empathic bombardment that we've been getting from wildlife suffering and the fear and the people and the anxiety and loss of life and just complete anxiety, it absolutely washes over empaths too. So it's almost like we're going through that with them. And it's just, it seems even horrible to mention because of course we're not, and my heart, bleeds for them, but we feel it. And the thing I feel the most is the animals and the fear and the devastation. So we have to try to laugh. It's not disrespectful. It's your own self-preservation as far as, look, we've got to keep standing or nobody's going to be here to help them when they crawl out of their whatever hole they've got themselves in, the ones that come through it. And I know you guys know what I mean. Because not everybody's awake yet. Not everybody realizes what's going on. And not everybody even sees any of this mess. And until they get up and are willing to stand up and realize what they almost lost, they might be ready to listen and be willing to fight for their square foot of real estate for it. And what do I mean by that? To make it right again. Because we let it go to shite. It's a long way from the Waltons. And I'm not saying we have to go all the way back to the Waltons, but by God, if we don't start treating each other better and get rid of these evil bastards that keep hurting the innocent, then what are we doing? You know what I mean? Forgotten country. Okay, so that cat, wow. And we've all heard different stories about all that, but it's also, the fleeting going down the hall, I'm not talking about residual where they're not aware of you. We're talking about communication. So it would have to be one where they're going down the hall, but they turn around and look back at you. That's communication. So the next one, that's just a little one to get started. Let's see the next one here. Let me get rid of that one. And would be yeah. I don't want to jump ahead too far, so I'm trying to find the right one here. Okay. Simple tools that we use. So we go back to all the different ones, like, gosh, go way back and think, scrying. That could also be considered where you're water scrying, where you're looking at your future in the well, you're looking in the lake, in the cup of tea, reading tea leaves, reading cards, tarot and oracle and regular. Steve comes on here and talks about his granny reading entrails. Many stories on that, all different kind of animals. Different things like pendulums, Ouija boards, dowsing rods. Now, that's something I use. Mine are right here. If I can reach them. Well, I can't reach them now. Trust me. They're copper. Great conduit. This young lady is using them to talk to a Civil War soldier that she saw in her bedroom, and listen what he, in his way, using the dowsing rods and how she set it up. What happens here? This is interesting. So dowsing rods, one of the oldest things out there. Love them. Hit it, kiddo.
Did you die here? Together for yes, out for no. Please push the rod back, please. Were you a Civil War soldier? Together for yes, out for no. Were you killed by a Confederate soldier? Were you killed by a woman? Are you buried in the yard? Oh my God, that's like a double yes. Okay, thank you. Were you the entity I saw a couple weeks ago in this room? Yes.
Muted Cisco. So that's just a little sampling of how she was using the dowsing rods. Now you can look at her hands, you can look at the muscles in her arms, you can look at her fingers, you can say that she's doing it with her mind, or some kind of trick, or some kind of, listen to me. I've had this happen all the time. Dowsing rods are amazing, not just for finding water, but it seems to me also that if you're talking to a spirit from a time that those may be something that they recognize, I always felt like that was a plus. And I don't know if it's just because I usually go in places that like Civil War and Revolutionary War, battlefield, stuff like that, in those kind of eras. And that doesn't mean I bumped in any modern ghosts, but if I'm going and I have them, it seems like that's who I'm talking to most of the time. So maybe that's why I'm kind of leaning that way. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it seemed to me that that always felt like it was a plus. Like right away, they understood what I was asking them to do using those. And it might have been very simple. Maybe it's the copper. I've always used copper, never used any other kind. I've known people to use just the willow branch, you know. I don't know if you guys have heard any different, but I think it has something to do with the familiarity of it. But then again, I've seen the same type of ghost. In fact, same in the same room where they responded with dowsing rods that would hit the cat toy that lights up, or make the that theremin sounding thing go off, that did all that, or make, you know, flashlights go on and off and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's familiarity or they can just read in your mind because they're telepathic what you want them to do, and maybe by you saying it and that vibration that you're putting out, there's a little thing I'm going to show you here where the gentleman describes it as the minute you think it, before you've ever said it, they've already got it. Think about that. They already know because it's your intent. They're already reading you, which is every time I've ever done this, bumped into it, planned investigation, or just wound up in it. That's how it always felt. Like they knew before I ever said it, you know, like before you ever finish, the dowsing rods are already going to yes, or, you know, they're already starting to answer you and respond. And that would make sense if they're communicating telepathically. Of course they would. The minute you think it, they know it. That can be scary. Think about that. What if it's not a friendly ghost, like Casper? You know, so think about those things. Not with copper. You don't do copper, Ted? Which one? They show ghost. Each one has a ghost power. Haha. Yeah, you know, that's just it. And I don't know if it's a separate ghost power or they're all capable of doing the same things. It's just that's the one they've worked on. That's the one they've recognized. That's the one that works for them. Or if it has something to do with the individual. And I have something about that in here, about the Crocs. Just making sure there isn't anything here about. I'm glad your son's unstuck, honey. And Mutt, I'm glad you spoke up. Welcome in, welcome in. I'll tell you what, lots of energy. You know, this is the place to be. This is the chat to be, because, you know, one of my best friends was, you know, more than heavy into it. And I think she spent like 11 years and had to go through all kinds of things till she just realized, boom, she had a complete 180. And she feels like her going through what she went through and learning what she learned, and, you know, having everything that she experienced made her a much stronger warrior for the light. So there you go. We all, like I said, we all take different journeys, and we're all here with our knowledge to share and to help each other and to keep each other up and strengthened. And, you know, because, you know, we're constantly learning. All right. So this next one, love that. I love the dowsing rods. And I think that's a great, you know, way to just, hey, this is one way that they communicate, but it's also, I didn't want to show all the other equipment. I mean, it's obvious. A lot of this equipment is fantastic, whether it's, you know, the infrared, the film, all the different stuff, the flare, the, you know, with the thing with the little skeleton dudes that show up, all the equipment is so cool. And yes, they can use that to communicate. But what I'm pretty much talking about is when you're actually having a conversation in a way. And sometimes you actually have a conversation. So let's see. Is this it? Might be. I want to get the right one. I think this is it. Here's a short one.
Don't care if you talk out loud or telepathically, because words don't communicate. It's the intention of the vibration of the words that you're speaking. Before the words even leave your mouth, there's a vibration that's felt. That's what they hear. Spirits don't care if you talk out loud or telepathically, because words don't communicate. It's the intention of the vibration of the words that you're speaking. Before the words even leave your mouth, there's a vibration that's felt. That's what they hear.
Boom. I mean, when you think about it like that and you hear it put together like that, it makes so much sense. It's also going to sharpen you to understand that, yeah, you're responsible for your thoughts. And you also have to be careful how you're thinking when you're going into a situation like an investigation or communication with a ghost, or one shows up to communicate with you. You take all that into consideration. It's so much more than walking into, like some of these shows we've all mentioned, we've talked about them before, go in and make it look so cold. It's not cold. It can happen in cold blood, where you're walking along and all of a sudden, bam. But because you've gone through this and because you've tried to understand it so well, your instincts are going to, kick in as a light worker, and you're going to be able to get on that level of, okay, what do we have here? What's going on? Here's a ghost. It's banging cabinets. It just went down the hall, took a look back. It's available. It's aware of me. It's not just a residual. What is it trying to say or show me, or is it, trying to do any of those things? Do they need help, or maybe it's trying to help me? You can't always assume that it's not that. We don't know yet. That's what investigation is all about, because so many different cases and times and stories that I've heard over the decades, a lot of times a ghost will come to you and connect to your net energy in something you're going through in your life at that time, and it's a helpful spirit. And it might be just a visitation, or it could very well be an earthbound one that hasn't crossed over yet, hasn't healed and got all that, whatever, that healing and that life review or whatever else you want to call it, and lost all those earthly burdens and came back because it seems like they're stronger and more knowledgeable. They have a little bit more, more messagey, whereas the earthbound ones are more like, hey, I'm rattling around in this attic. What the hell are you doing here? Kind of thing, for the most part. All right. So here's not in all cases, but, for the most part. Okay. So I think I have one that's good for that. Let me see. Whose communication? Is this it? Which one is this one? Oh, I wanted you to hear this about the spirit guides too. This is very interesting. I love this lady. This is on the Stephen Spencer podcast. This is one of his shorts. Listen to her.
Telepathy is truly thought leaping back and forth. And we all have the ability to be telepathic. And to me, that's just one of the primary pathways to receive intuitive information, because when we talk to our spirit guides, it's telepathic. It's an electrical spurt that surges through our body. Every single word runs through our body in an electronic way. And then it also shoots out into our aura, our energy field, and then out to the universe. If we tune in, we are very, very naturally telepathic, because we're just simply receiving electrical frequencies of a thought. When people realize how powerful we are and we have all these abilities, we have to take even greater care not to abuse these abilities. Telepathy.
Very, very, very important point. Sorry, I was muted. We have to take care not to abuse these abilities. I spoke on this, I think 2 episodes ago, where we were talking about, why we can't do lottery numbers. Why don't we, if I play lottery numbers, it never works, or whatever. Why can't I, try to figure out how to make myself $1 million, whatever it is. It's, what you start doing is you're starting to tarnish the ability. You're using it for the wrong things. And you also do that with the knowledge. When you start understanding that we're accountable for the things that we do, that every time we do something, it's like dropping a pebble into a pond and causing ripples to ripple out and to affect other people. Once we realize that, we're a little more careful. And I think this is just my thought now. I feel like we're more accountable, because if you don't know and you make a mistake and you do that, your soul wasn't aware till after the fact. But if you know, you have a knowing going into it and you do it anyway, totally different deal. So think about that. And I thought it was really cool. Somebody was having a conversation, I think it was yesterday, and they were saying about, well, you're really responsible. I think it was Mel Gibson, to tell you the truth. I think he said along the lines, they were talking about responsible for sin and all that. And he was saying that you're not responsible for your first thought. It's the second thought and what you do about it. And I think that was so interesting. It was. And I think it was Joe Rogan that said back to him, isn't that interesting? Because it's actually looked at differently in a court of law as well. So you have first degree murder and second degree murder. You know, was it planned? Did you go in knowing? Or did it just happen in a passion? So think about that too. And I think that's important if you're thinking about communicating with spirit or a ghost. You have to understand too of what is the condition of the person you're speaking to, because in life we have the advantage of being able to see and hear, and all the senses are there. We might not understand what the person's going through, but we can tell through body language and other things, or the way they're talking, the things they're saying, the things they're doing, you know, and how they're acting, all goes into us assessing what the hell's going on in there. When you have a ghost, you may not be seeing the ghost. You might be just feeling the vibration. Everything you have is like on your intuition, all your filters, all your spidey senses, right? And you're trying to, via this, whatever communication you have, whatever senses you're able to be using, telepathic or otherwise, you have to assess what you're dealing with here. Is this an erratic ghost that knows what, you know, they're just upset? They think that they're stuck in this. What are they seeing? How are they feeling? You know, have you ever tried to settle down a relative or a friend that was just completely, you know, gone off the rails, you know, just whatever, having a mental moment, you know, and you have to like calm down, take a breath, you know, tell me what happened, sort it out, let's work through it, you know. And I'm not making fun of it or making light of it. I'm saying that's a difficult task in the living world. Now you're dealing with somebody who's dead and you can't see them. Or even if you could, you don't know them, you don't know their backstory. And how are they communicating with you? You have very few pieces to this puzzle. And so to go in there, you know, all jacked up on steroids and fame, in a black t-shirt, kicking in doors and go and knock on the door, or I'm going to, you know, call you some bad names and challenge you some more and whatever, it's not going to get you the results you need. And it certainly isn't going to draw in any spirit that would be drawn to that type of energy. I think that bad brings bad, good brings good, and good vibes are going to draw good vibes. You know, it might also draw bad to attack those good vibes, but it's not, you're just drawing it by, you know, like attracts like, is what I'm saying. So communicate with spirit takes some responsibility, I think, as well, especially if you're putting yourself into that position and you're walking up into their space. Hey, yo, what are you doing here? Do you know, you can't just, you can, but if you're going to act like that, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to get good results and you're not going to be able to help anybody. What are you doing it for? You know, so you have to assess it that way. You might not be going in to help somebody. You might be going in just so you can see if you can get some EVPs or something like that and have no intention of carrying out anything else. And that's fine. But if you're going in to try to communicate, or you want to try to understand how they're communicating, then you have to go at it in a whole different, it's a whole different thing. Does that make sense? Okay. And what about that? You know, what is the responsibility of somebody that goes in as a human being? As, you know, you might feel like, okay, I'm not my brother's keeper. I'm certainly not my dead brother's keeper. I don't even believe in this ghost stuff. You know, there takes all kinds. But here's the thing. A lot of people, and a big debate is, do we even have the right to go in there and try to get a ghost to go into the light, or try to get a ghost to leave a house or a field or a business? And that's been, it's still a huge debate in the paranormal. There's all these stories of, oh, well, so-and-so came out and said that going into light is a trap. And if you go in, you get into this soul cycle of, you just go in there and you have no choice or anything else, where you just go in and whether you like it or not, you go into this rotation of recycling, and it's a slave planet, and it's, commanded by aliens, and we're all slaves to the aliens, and this is what our soul does. And when our body wears out, they just put our soul into another body, and then we just keep mining gold and paying taxes and doing all the things. Okay, a good story. Not buying it. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying I'm not feeling it, because here's the thing. Why does everything else have free will, and then once we die, we don't? Doesn't make sense to me. If it's so important for a ghost to have free will to stay or go, then what's the difference once they get into the light? Now they don't have any more choices, even though over decades, well over 5 decades now, of communicating and getting communication back and hearing stories from trusted sources about this information. I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that. So we can put that on the shelf, and we may very well be, all made in the image of reptilian, praying mantis things, and have to, and our soul goes into the light, and we automatically go into some kind of, apparatus where our soul just gets, recycled around the bin and pops out another one, and here we go again. Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't feel right. Doesn't ring any bells. It just doesn't. And that doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that if you're asking me what I think, that's what I think. What do you think? When I see a young ghost, a little girl spirit, and I can feel her fear, and I can feel her fear start to subside, and her anxiety start to subside in her actual energy standing in front of me, getting closer to me and looking at me in the face. I can actually feel her looking at me, and feel her light and her energy get warmer as we're talking about her pet dog and what it felt like to play outside in the sun, and what it felt like to get a hug from her nanny, and all these other things. You could feel the warmth and the light build, and the whole light in the room start to do the same thing. And when the light came in and her loved ones were there too, the light just expanded even more so, and that feeling grew even more so by 3, 4, 5 times. And everybody in the room felt it. There's something to that doesn't resonate with reptilian praying mantis dudes that are taking my soul and can't wait to send it through the hopper again, like one of those, sending a bank deposit through one of those freaking tubes, shoots out the other side, and before you know it, you're just reincarnated, and you have no choice or no say, no lesson, nothing, just shoot back around again. So there's that. But so now that I've said that, I want to tell you this. Spirits and ghosts most likely communicate through thoughts, telepathy as their preferred way of communicating. The thinking of thoughts most likely cannot be hidden in the realm of spirit. Think about what that says. The thinking of thoughts most likely cannot be hidden in the realm of spirit. So think Children of the Corn, where the guys had to think of a brick wall to block them. I'm having that recently. I've got somebody who's telling me a story, and I'm listening to the story. I'm getting a blank wall. So either something she's involved with is that person is involved with is putting up a block, or it's complete and utter made up nonsense. And I'm just looking at it going, I'm not getting anything. And that's not usual. And I'm not getting anything that it's something strong that's trying to hold back. I'm just getting like a vast empty pit, like an empty void. And that's, you know what I mean? So think about that. When you're thinking, they already know what you're thinking. I just really think that's important to get across, because you're not going to hide it. And people whisper, like, I'm going to whisper so the spirits don't hear. So let's make all the plans in the house of what we're going to do to combat this thing, and pretend that it doesn't hear it, or it's not in your, it's in your dreams. It's doing all these other things, but it doesn't hear you when you whisper. Let's be real. So it's reading your thoughts. Thoughts are spirit energy. Different forms of ITC are just methods at physically turning into the thoughts of those around us in spirit. If we could pull back the curtain that seemingly separates us from the invisible world, we might be shocked to find that we are probably hearing and being influenced regularly by the thoughts of spirits and ghosts on the other side of the veil. That is so true. That is so true. Let me say it again. If we could pull back the curtain that seemingly separates us from the invisible world, we might be shocked to find that we are probably hearing and being influenced regularly by the thoughts of spirits and ghosts on the other side of the veil. We talked about this a lot when I wrote Cabin 22. We've talked about it when we brought up Slender Man. And I got in a debate with somebody about, well, you know, we know Slender Man is an absolute falsehood, because it was, hey Lee, how you doing, sweetie? An absolute falsehood because it was made up by a guy who put it into the internet. And I said, well, how do you know? A spirit of some sort, like Slender Man, wasn't standing right behind him, influencing him to write what he wrote. Chicken or the egg? All right, what's next? Let's throw in a ghost story here for you guys. So, can ghosts, which one is this? All right, so wait, before I do that much, I want to show you this. Now, the other ways they communicate is through people like us, through mediums, through psychics, through whatever. And say what you want about them. I've heard good, bad, and ugly about every medium that I know, every famous medium. Everybody's a charlatan. Everybody's doing tricks. Everybody's doing this. I know some real good ones. And I'll tell you what, it's an amazing thing to watch. This woman, say what you want to say, she's the real deal. I know people who know her. You know, I'm telling you. My favorite is Kim Russo and Amy Allen, but they're different. Everybody's different. You understand? John Edwards. Oh, that guy, he used to do. Prove it to me. Because I've seen, for decades, I've seen different. And like people with Sylvia Brown and all this stuff. You're going to have to bring me some serious evidence, because I've got tons of it for the side of these people are doing good as best they can. Now, I've seen some people out there that started out doing really good and they got caught up in the money and they're kind of trying to do a little backpedaling now. And I've seen people that flounder back and forth. I've seen people that grew and changed their ideas, and that's what you want to see. But this girl, she's pretty good, and she lives not far from here. And I thought this was kind of sweet. So this is just another example of how spirits communicate through a third party. And that would be a medium or psychic, or like Long Island medium. Here you go.
Teresa started to read our audience, but Spirit is still communicating with her. Teresa, go for it.
Can you please stand back
I
up,
need
man,
a
with the
drink,
picture?
man. I need some liquor. I need some scotch.
Channeling? You would need more than one scotch, so just...
Yeah, I'm
What happens is, what I asked to be done was to bring forward other souls, but more importantly, your son says, Mom, you wouldn't have known that I was going to depart.
No.
Do you understand that?
No, yeah.
He says, nobody knew.
No.
Oh, he also shows me his sweatshirt. So do you have his sweatshirt or his jacket that you wear? Okay. So know that when you wear that, know that his soul is with you. Did you make a blanket or quilt out of his clothing?
I'm starting to, yeah.
Perfect. It means that he supports all of the choices and decisions. So if you don't think that he's at peace, there's no way that I would know that. He says, he also talks about his headstone.
Yes.
He says it's very different. He shows me this big black headstone. I can see my reflection in it. And it's very unique because you have like either something is picture engraved and then some type of saying on there.
It says, come sit with me a while and take a break. And it says 219 for our area code. And it's got a verse of a Harry Chapin song that was kind of like a...
Perfect.
Like
to validate that every choice and decision that you ever made with your son, alive and also departed. He says, I want to thank you for giving me that gift. He says, and I want you, Mom, to know that I live life through your eyes. So I want you to be happy. So know every time you smile, my soul is smiling in heaven. Your daughter shows me the butterflies, ma'am. So do you connect with the butterflies? Perfect. So know that when you see the butterflies, you do know that it's the butterfly. Did you do something with your daughter's handprint after she died on a sheet or something, or you did a family handprint?
When my daughter passed away, the nurse at the hospital printed my daughter's hand and her footprint on someone's heart.
Perfect. So you know to validate that it was her soul's time to leave. Let me ask you this. Was there a point where she got better?
Before she passed away.
Okay. Because I said to her, I go, what do you show? She showed me like doing all these great things. And she keeps talking about Disney and all this stuff. And I said to her, I go, well, what is that? She goes, Teresa, she goes, I am so thankful that I was blessed with another brief time here of not being sick. She says, because I was able to do so many things with my family. She says, and I wouldn't have traded that for anything. She goes, but then I went so quickly after that.
Really fast.
She says, Mom, I want you to focus on that time, that extra time I was given back. And I wouldn't have traded that for anything. And she tells me you smell her.
I do.
So know that when you do, know that she's with you at that exact moment. You also have things in your car in memory of her. Does it fall and move like when you're driving?
Yes.
That's her. I said to her, you better be careful. Your mom is going to crash your car.
Okay.
Are you all right?
No, this crazy right here. See, I sit here. You see, it's crazy to me. You got to go get this book. I'm scared. My hands is wet. You don't even understand. You don't understand. Look at my hand. My hands are sweating. My hands is wet because I've been sitting over here because it's just crazy.
Well, we've all seen them. Like I said, Ted, say what you want, but I have seen mediums change people's lives. I've sat there for years, very much like Houdini. You really want it to be real, I can imagine what he thought of, with these people pulling ectoplasm out of their nose and stuff in the Victorian area and all the pictures and all the charlatans and all the snake oil salesmen and the horns flying around and the kicking under the table and all of the tricks. But I have seen mediums sit down in a room with strangers without books or earphones or leading questions or any of that and tell an adult human something that happened to them when they were 3, the book they were read before bed, the cover of the book, who did it, and then what happened to that child afterwards that changed their life completely and upscunged them. And that person that they hadn't seen since they were 3, that they loved their whole life, their whole 75 years, came back to tell them that they were on the other side and had been watching them as they lived and were so proud of them, and then named specific things that this person had done that nobody knew. So here's the thing. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if there are people with this ability that use this ability for good, Now, once you start getting into these where you've got shows and now they're driving fancy cars and they're going places and they're charging money to go to arenas and things like that, it all starts to get hazy fuzzy, and we can start throwing things down on it. And that makes us think less of that ability or thinks less of that. And it's like going back to what I said about using your ability to try to win a lottery or try to win at cards. Does it taint it, or are they still doing good? That's up to you. I can't make that decision, but I've seen it change lives. I've seen it alter a course that the living was on, that they are no longer on, and it changed them. So what I see is a lot of good. I see a lot of, just like everything else, when you have something like, say, hey, a cure, or an energy idea, or a car that runs on water, usually what happens is somebody bad gets a hold of that idea and turns it into a weapon. And anytime you have power, or anytime you have a chance for fame or to create money on somebody else's devastation, grief, or whatever, you're going to have that. And I think that taints it for everybody. But again, it's like I said, baby with the bathwater, or, you're going to throw out all the good ones along with the bad. So what can you do? You can discern. You can look at it and use your own filters, and you can discern. Am I right? Oh, I know. And I've heard people say stuff like, I get you, Ted. And I'm not arguing or saying anything like that. I'm using your statement to prove a point of, and I hope you don't mind, but I'm just trying to make a point of, it's so easy for our minds to say that can't be real. It's too good to be true. Well, that's what we do too when we see grandma came, she's in Scottsdale, she's in Arizona somewhere, and you're in New York, and you're in a hotel, and all of a sudden grandma's standing at the edge of your bed. You didn't even know she was sick. She's saying goodbye. And the next thing you know, that next morning you get a call from a family member that says, grandma passed last night. Now you're trying to assess, do I need medication? And I don't know why this society now would automatically go to that, rather than back in the day, maybe a simple country folk like, the Waltons or any other family that was together that had open talk about this stuff, would have gone, well, grandma came to say goodbye. I feel privileged that she took the time to come by and tell me how much she loved me. And then it's a whole different experience, and that's kind of what I'm trying to hang on to is, not everything is good grandma coming to say she loves you, but I don't want to miss one of those because I'm worried about the thing in the closet, or about the charlatan that is trying to rip people off. Because after 50 years, I've honed my stuff good enough that I can pick them out before they ever get there. Just like a spirit knows what you're thinking. I've got energy too. And I've honed it to the point where I can pull that out. Now, have I overridden that and tried to talk myself out of it and been sorry afterwards and gone, yeah, but they're worth the extra work and everything. Nope. Should have went with the first thought. Nope. And you learn that too, if you go through it enough. So that was my point there, that there's a lot of good being done too. And, it's like the snake oil salesman or whatever, if there's 10 of those on a shelf, but one of those bottles got a cure in it, it's hard, but you got to be tough. You got to be spiritually tough. Okay, let's see. Here's the next thing. Let's do now. Can a ghost, let me see if I find that, communicate with you as far as touching or shaking the bed, or just to get your attention? Maybe standing behind you, tapping you on the shoulder, you turn around, nobody's there. Is it trying to get your attention or just drive you crazy? Again, you got to use your filters to try to figure that out. You got to move past your base, like we were talking before about energy and ghost influencing us and saying things and chitter chatter all the time. And is that influencing us and our thoughts? You got to find your base. You cannot discern if it's you or not if you don't know what your base is, your base feeling, what's your stuff. And the only way you know that is when you're grounding, you get to know you, and then you're having thoughts. You're driving along in a car, and all of a sudden you get a weird feeling, and you start getting, hey, what about that, that really bitchy chick down at the office? I ought to get, what for? Is that your thought? Did that just pop into your head out of nowhere? Or is somebody sitting in your back seat whispering in your ear? Because it happens. Creepy, huh? But it happens. So when you have your base, you can kind of pick that up and go, oh, whoa, that's not me. I was talking to Lynn and the ladies, and wonderful Michelle, talking to them about when you hear things, does it come in different directions? Like I get stuff in my, I've got it down to where I know in the direction it comes, and I usually can tell what source it's coming from. Work on those things. And the only way you're going to work on those things is if you let yourself be around some of these people that, hey, this one might really be for real. I've known people that have gone and just sat there and told me exactly where somebody was. I called up the person and I said, okay, I've got 3 people that are telling me it's here. Latitude and longitude, right here. They went, that's where the car was, found the girl. It's not all fake. You got to be able to discern which one's which. And that's just life, Now, Spirit's getting stuck and not crossing. Let's listen to what he's got to say, and then I've got a little story for you. Yeah, we got plenty of time. I like this
When
one.
we die, is it possible to get stuck in the 3rd dimension or leave some of our energy behind? When we die, is it possible to get stuck in the 3rd dimension or leave some of our energy behind? It's not possible to be entirely stuck in the 3rd dimension, but there are soul parts that can be left behind. Soul parts are fragmented parts of our energy. They get stuck in a certain time-space reality, and they act as a container of pain. You see, when we incarnate into the 3rd dimension, there's only a portion of our energy that actually gets projected into a physical body. The rest of who we are remains non-physical. We are these large, vast energy beings, and the majority of who you are does not reside in that body. And when there's pain, shock, fixation, or severe trauma, that can cause us to experience what certain shamanic traditions call soul loss. Soul loss occurs when the part of our energy that experienced the trauma and pain dissociates from the rest of who we are. It doesn't actually really break off and become separate, but it does get compartmentalized and forgets who it is. And these soul parts stay stuck in this time-space reality where they're experiencing the trauma, and it's going through the motions over and over. It's getting played like on a loop in a movie. Now, it's important to remember it's not the entire being that's stuck in this trauma loop. It's only a fragment of the energy that's compartmentalized and dissociated from the rest of who it truly is. Have you ever heard a trauma survivor with PTSD say, "It feels like I'm still there, living it over and over"? That's because a part of their energy is. We all have.
Does that blow your mind just a little bit? Think about that. We talked about fractured souls. We've talked about separation of souls. We've talked about split soul. We've talked about a trace of something left behind, but the full soul, or most of it, has crossed over. Excuse me. We talked about in the Lizzie Borden case and some other cases. Very interesting thought. I don't know quite how I feel about the whole theory of I can't explain it. Where some of us would stay behind. All right, here's a good example. Amy Allen had a case. I've told this story before. I'll tell it very quickly. Restaurant in Asbury Park. I believe it was called, I can't remember the name of it. The Demon is something or other. But anyway, it was the restaurant in Asbury Park. I know it well. My mom and dad used to work in the 60s, used to work right down the street from it. So it's been a million things since then. So mostly restaurants, they don't stay long. Wonder why. So there is something ancient in this damn cellar that just feeds on broken people with cracks in their windshield. They push and push and push on that nerve until they pop it, and they make that person go. There's a history in that area, that whole block of Asbury Park, that there's something that just pushes all the buttons and makes a lot of violence and a lot of domestic violence, a lot of fights, a lot of robberies, just that kind of area. In this basement of this restaurant, one of these things is lurking. Amy found it right away. And at the time this store that this incident happened, this store was an antique store, and it was owned by an elderly gentleman that took in a homeless man. He gave him a job, and a younger man. And at one point, this young man had a tendency to be violent and angry and lash out, maybe petty crimes, stuff like that. Nothing really big, just, constant, always in kind of trouble, like a Bowery boy kind of, thing. Homeless, never, really got his stuff together. Probably little drugs here or there, but nothing overly violent, that kind of thing. But the tendencies, again, were there. He was in the cellar working, hammering, building shelves or something for this man, spent a lot of time in the cellar. This thing worked on him, pushed the buttons. This guy came by, and I guess it was kept whispering to him. He kept saying that he would hear things like, he's making a play for you, and he's doing this. He thinks you're, he thinks you're one of them, and, all this kind of thing, and working on this whole homophobic kind of thing the guy had going on. He's a young kid. He's, he's not like that, and he didn't want to be hit on. And this thing worked on it until the guy comes walking by. He took something wrong, and he beat this guy in the head with the hammer. I don't know how many times, over 20 times. I can't even remember. So by the time Amy Allen gets down there, she's assessing all this, and this is the point of the story. She says, I don't like this. There's two entities here. One of them is an ancient that's, she said more than likely demonic, and pushed on all the buttons of humans and made them go off or turn them violent or whatever. But again, the tendency has to be there in the first place. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So it pushes and pushes and pushes on that nerve till it gets you to pop. That's what it did. And the interesting part about the case is the fact that that ghost was there of the person who did the crime. He's there. She can see him. She's describing him to a T, to the point where you could get that little picture. Is this what you saw? The picture looked just like him, that thing. And at the time of the haunting and all of this stuff in this now a restaurant where this old man was killed. Now it's a restaurant, lots of problems. Well, it's got the entity that stays in the basement, but it's got this thing of this guy that killed this guy with the hammer all through the restaurant, causing all kind of havoc and trying to get other people involved in its violent little game. Okay. Here's the kicker. Dude's still alive. He's in prison. He's up at Rikers. Not far from here. He's at Rikers. Alive. Fully alive. But he left part of his essence and his soul there in that moment of that crime, in that anger. And this thing, the entity, was feeding off of all of that. Plus, controlling him to make him go upstairs and involve, with all the waitresses, and the people at the restaurant, because now it's going up there and causing more havoc and feeding this thing. It's crazy. Just when you think you've understood everything in the paranormal that can be understood, you turn the page. It's incredible. So there you go. You guys some of you might have heard that story. Did anybody ever hear that story? Watch that show? TV hubby on the show? Yeah. Yeah. I like her a lot. And I think I really dig her. I love the fact that she was a consultant. But here's the thing. There was a lot of things. Now, she consulted, it was between her and James Von Prague that worked on The Ghost Whisperer. The problem was, after the first 6 episodes of the show, they started reaching a little bit too far, and she would get upset by it. By then they started shutting her down as a consultant, and she had to bend a lot of things. I love the show, The Ghost Whisperer, but both her and James would say that they had to fight for, the producers to keep that as close as they could, and it kind of got out of the colored outside the lines a little bit for her taste. But I like that about her. Yeah, that was a great episode. Thank you. Hey, how you doing, Gerald? Yeah, we have to work hard. That's just it. We have to work harder. Do you really? Do you really? That's great. Oh gosh, stick around, because that is wonderful. Those are strengths I don't have, and I would love your input just anytime. Put it in the chat, especially when I'm trying to dig on this stuff, because a lot of this I don't reach out in certain areas I don't understand. I have to find people I trust to explain it to me. And I have to want it bad enough to go through all that shit to find people. Do you know what I'm saying? So say I wanted to learn about quantum physics, and I wanted to learn about quantum entanglement, and I wanted somebody to explain all that to me. Well, first I have to find the source I want to go to. So I have to study them all. And then I have to filter them and see if they're lying, their body language, everything that I use, and then hone that down and try to get the cream off the top, and then try to discern from that. And it's crazy. It takes a long time, but that's a process. So anytime you can chime in and, tell me I'm batshit crazy or whatever, and tell me what's right, I'm all down with that, because my main thing is getting the truth out there, And like I said, I got no problem being wrong, but I'm not always that easy to convince I am. I'm joking. That's just joking. It's a little joke. Okay, here we go. Because here's the thing too. If I don't know, I'll tell you. I was like, I don't know nothing about it, and I don't have the time to learn. It's like I'm not going to learn, underwater basket weaving right now. I don't have enough room on my plate. I have no room left. I only have so much RAM, So where's the other one here? Let's do this one. Let's get us a little quick ghost story in here. Boop a doop boop. I found that very interesting. About it's something definitely to dig into. There's another quick little guy here. Let me get him over with, because I want to fit him in before I get this other one here. Is that it? Oh, yeah. I like this. This is an interesting take as well. Tell me what you think.
Demons are called the knowing ones. The Latin word for demon is the knowing ones. There are all kinds of spirits that watch and report, and they're all over. There's no place really that they're not. There's a myriad of spirits. They all have assignments. Spirits, they don't speak audibly. They speak telepathically, which is mind to mind. When it comes to mind, it's a universal concept. Telepathy can happen between two parties a world apart, because we're familiar with the speed of light, but the speed of thought is even faster than the speed of light. A lot of times people are like they're talking in whispers, trying to keep spirits from knowing things. That is ridiculous. They don't need to hear you. They don't even have ears, for heaven's sake, right? Demons are called the know.
All this is interesting. You got to keep on the stuff. You're on, Mub. I'm down. Teaching me a way. I think it's important to learn as much of that. I can go as far as I can understand. And then I usually tell, anytime I'm trying to learn something, I'm like, okay, got it there. Let's go back a couple. And I make sure that I get it reinforced before I go further on. Because I'm feeling that there's a reason. I'm trying to understand, and I'm, say what you want about Lear and everything. I think he's been saying the same thing for 30 years, and it's coming. And I know these people, and here's the thing, and this is the stuff. But I think he's also been picked to be that spokesperson to keep that in that narrative out there. I'm really liking Wilcox, because I think he's a happy dappy kind of. He's more like the Tigger of the group, And there's some that came out that you just knew the minute they opened their mouth, they were full of crap. I didn't believe their backstory, their origin story, and all this other stuff. So I used to love having the conversations with my older brother, who went to MIT. He was bid on MIT and all kind of crazy stuff, and he's up there. But we had the greatest conversations about time travel and folding time and all these other stuff, and I think it's important to understand the things a little bit, because it's so much is happening now. And so many things are shifting. You've got that whole Mandela effect stuff. I think that's happened not just once, but maybe 2 or 3 times. And I think when it does, it bumps us, you know. And why are we getting bumped? And why at the same time we're doing that, there's this awakening and this consciousness, awareness change. And I believe that there was something that happened in probably 2012 that shifted. And then you've got CERN and you got all this other stuff and people mucking around with it and chaos magic and everything else thrown in. And it's, you know, it's a party, baby. You know what I'm saying? So knowledge is power. I'm all for it. What's the other one I want to show you? This is fun. All right. Now, spirit's touching you to get your attention. But here's one. Is this it? Can spirit heal you? So what I mean is, I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. What I mean is not just spirits coming back to help, to guide, to assist, to encourage, or try to keep somebody from going to something. Listen, I've had stuff happen in my life that blow your mind. Blow your mind. And I'm sure you have too if you think about it, right? It could be something as simple as having your keys lost and then you find out, you know, you didn't get in the accident. You would have been there. All these different things. Little subtle stuff like that to big things. Like all of a sudden, you didn't think you were going to meet somebody and all of a sudden you went somewhere and you didn't really want to go, but you went and then this person was there and you're like, wait a minute, what? There's been at least 3 or 4 of those that I went later, even years later, and had a session, was talking to, you know, a friend or a medium, whatever, and they look back and go, oh, wait a minute, such and such just came in here and said, you know, that time they did that. They encouraged that. They manipulated that. You know, it was up to you to make the choices and the things and what you did with it, but they manipulated that. They made you look there or do this thing. And I think, again, that's why I'm so big on understanding free will and what spirits are communicating to us, as far as they're not going to give you all the answers, but they give you the nudge, the shove in the right direction. Sometimes it's extremely noticeable. Other times it's very subtle. And again, it could be physical things, or it could be just the encouragement in your ear. But then again, if good can do that, so can bad. So what do we do to combat that? If it's true that this man is saying that this stuff is around us all the time, which I totally believe it is, you would be shocked if you knew how much. You have to create almost like this invisible shield of protection around you. Luckily, you have that. Guess where it comes from? Right here in your center. And you just move it out and push it out. Have y'all tried that yet? The little test project I gave you? I told you, before you go into work, before you go into wherever, your office or whatever, that's kind of a place that's kind of where there's a lot of energy that you're trying to avoid, or there's that worker that always comes at you with all that negativity, or that family member that's just, or that friend or whatever, that you just want to kind of tap that back a little bit. Sit right before you go into where you're going to meet this person and put this protective bubble of light around you, and create your mantra that you want to say, like, only, you know, this bubble of golden light repels all negativity, all negative thinkers, all people that would do me harm, all arrows shot against me. You add in all of that, seal it with your faith and your light, and say no negative can penetrate this, and walk with it, and just feel like you're physically in your mind. Imagine that being physically wrapped around you as you're walking. And you go in, and when you walk in and you see that person and they come up to you and they kind of act a little funny, or their face kind of changes, they're trying to understand what's going on. Sometimes they just turn around and leave. It's like they can't even understand what just happened. It's so funny. It's almost like they bounce off of it. Try it. The more you practice it, the stronger it'll get. You're going to need that bubble of protection. right? It's real easy to forget. It's real easy to get caught up in your daily and, road rage and people rage and all that stuff. But you got to suck it in. You got to, nope. If I can't handle this, I'm going to stop a minute. I'm going to put that bubble around, that golden light, and then I'm going to go home. And as soon as I can, I'm going to make time for me to ground and reassess my tools and take my tools out and sharpen them and say, hey, I know these things. These things are true to me. This is what I know I can do. This is what I know I have survived. This is what I know I can survive. And even if I don't, my light does. And whether or not you decide that your light goes into this bank teller kind of tube ride where you go in and up, back in you go, and you have no choice about it, then, well, if that's true, then what are you going to do? Live, love, laugh, right? It's like George Carlin said, well, there's nothing after. Well, yeah, I've had 4 mediums that don't know each other that have all come to me and told me sometime in conversation, oddly as it sounds, that the first words out of George Carlin's mouth when he got to the other side was, no shit. There's no atheists in foxholes. It's as individual as as the individual. But they're usually pretty surprised when they get over there. It's neat. It's interesting. So let's see. I'm going to get some more tea. If, what you think about ghosts coming and healing? And I think it's absolutely true. And I've been in healing circles and I've been in healing rooms where you can feel the ancestors and all my relatives and all theirs and all our spirit guides and ascended beings. You could feel them in the room. You could feel it happening. I told a story the other day where I've actually got a picture of something that happened, and it's a great story, and I'll tell it again down the line, but you could feel it. So yes, I believe that. And this is a great little story that talks about it. Let's watch it. It's about 10 minutes.
In Boston, Massachusetts, another long-dead soul has returned to pay a visit to vulnerable hotel guests.
I believe that there is something in that room. I believe that there is some kind of a presence.
Why has he returned? And what does he want with the inhabitants of room 24? Boston, Massachusetts, the town where America's past and present meet. Towering skyscrapers and passing taxis mingle with historic buildings, cobblestone streets, and other remnants of the nation's humble beginnings. But just 50 kilometers beyond this historic city, in the town of Concord, lies a different world, seemingly untouched by centuries of change.
When you come to Concord, you walk around and you feel like you're stepping back in time.
But Concord is much more than a picturesque tourist destination. 200 years ago, the future of America was defined in this quaint town.
I feel honored to have visited the site where it all started.
In 1775, the first shot of the Revolutionary War was fired. It became known as the shot heard round the world. Locals say you can hear it still.
This is where it happened. The British were on that side of the river, the farmers across this river, and this is where the fight for freedom occurred.
Concord's Colonial Inn has stood in the town for over 200 years. This traditional hotel offers guests a modern restaurant, a bar, and if you stay in room 24, perhaps even a ghost.
I believe that there is something in that room. I believe that there is some kind of a presence.
Today, this 56-room colonial-style hotel attracts guests from all over the world. But years ago, it was the private home of a well-respected physician named Dr. Minot. Dr. Minot led a simple life until April the 19th, 1775, when war came to his front door. British troops marched into Concord to destroy rebel weapon stores. Alerted by Paul Revere, a militia was raised to meet them at the North Bridge.
The militia up on the hill noticed that there was smoke rising up from the town. And so they thought that the British were burning down their town.
Someone in the militia, angered by the sight, drew his weapon. No one knows exactly who fired first, but the lone shot that rang out spooked the British troops, who fired into the crowd, killing 8. Dr. Minot rushed to the scene, opening his home, turning it into a makeshift hospital, and treating the wounded.
He's noted because he didn't only treat the Americans, he treated the British, so he treated all those who were injured.
After the fateful day, Dr. Minot remained in the house and lived out his life in Concord. Over 200 years later, he is still remembered for his heroic efforts. Today, guests at the Colonial Inn can sleep where he once slept, work where he once worked, and maybe even walk alongside the local hero himself.
Some people feel that Dr. Minot might still be here in the house, acting as the in-house doctor, taking care of people, taking care of guests while they're here, and especially when they're in room 24.
One night, unsuspecting newlyweds checked into room 24. They left the next morning without a word of explanation. 2 weeks later, the innkeeper received a letter.
I was awoken in the middle of the night by a presence in the room. I opened my eyes and saw a grayish figure at the side of my bed. It was not a distinct person, but a shadowy mass in the shape of a standing figure. It remained still for a moment, and then slowly floated to the foot of the bed, where the apparition melted away. It was a terrifying experience, and upon relaying the story to my husband, he said the ghost was included with the price of the room.
Many guests staying in room 24 have reported inexplicable temperature changes, from blazing hot to icy cold. Others have been terrified by a shallow breathing down the back of their necks, or white orbs coming towards them in the dead of night.
She said that she had saw these little wisps of light that would show up, slowly move, vanish.
And one guest says she felt the healing touch of the doctor coming back from beyond the grave.
I woke up somewhere in the middle of the night. I couldn't see a clock. And I had a bad stomach ache.
And what happened next defies all reason.
I felt a tingling sensation on the top of my head. I felt as if my body were vibrating, as if an electrical current was going through me. I just felt rigid. I couldn't move my hands, my feet. I was just rigid. That's when it occurred to me that the stomachache was gone.
Is it possible for the dead to cure the living? Is it possible that his connection to the Colonial Inn and the surrounding area is so strong that after hundreds of years, Dr. Minot's presence remains? Skeptics may have their doubts, but for the guests who have experienced the doctor's presence and healing touch firsthand, his ghost is very real.
I do believe that, when a house is so old or this inn is so old and so many events that have happened here, that there's probably some trace of their experiences still within the house. And to stay in the room where a noted person like Dr. Minot, and who is famous for treating the troops, for people who maybe appreciate history, can feel a little bit of a connection to him.
For Carol McCabe and other guests of the Colonial Inn, that connection is stronger than they ever imagined. From majestic castles to quaint colonial inns, hotels all over have secrets hidden behind their walls and beneath their floors. Tales of love and of loss, of vibrant lives and violent deaths.
Well, there we go. I wanted to show you that one. We've got some other ones there too, but for probably tomorrow night. So here's the deal. Can ghosts come and heal? I believe yes. Many stories on ghosts that come through to watch, say, over other ghosts, maybe to keep them safe. A stronger energy, maybe a ghost that feels like they didn't do enough in life for a certain amount of people and now is trying to make up for it before they cross over. Maybe they have the knowledge. I'm comfortable in the thought that you can raise your vibration and go out on a higher vibration, whatever that means. How many levels of that is? How many vibrations are there? Multiple cases and experiences myself with understanding that certain ghosts that even cross over are vibrating at a different level, at a lower level than other ascended beings. In fact, that's exactly what it means. So it's easy to imagine that, right? What does that mean? I think it's very simple for ascended beings to go down to lower levels and go back again, back and forth. I would imagine it's a much harder for a lower level vibrator to a lower level vibrator. Did I just say that? And then goes to go to a higher level and then come back down again. You see what I mean? I think it's harder. Most of the ghost communications from spirit that come through in communications with various situations, mostly trance mediums and mediums and psychic mediums, who come through to communicate that they have to go and get or bring up that person that might not be quite ready for this higher vibration. It's almost like, bright light, with Gizmo and the Gremlins. It's like it's too much. It's too much for them. They can't handle it yet. They're working on it. And that makes so much sense to me. That's why I don't buy into this easy broad brush painted thing of all souls do this, all ghosts do this, all people who die do this, and it must be this way, and there's no differential and there's no individuality, and that's bunk, because there's individuality here, and this has got to be one of the most lowest vibrational planets there is. If there's one worse than this, I don't want to know it. And I hear it from everybody that's ascended in their consciousness enough to understand that we have a choice in where we reincarnate. Think about that. There's an interesting thought that this is the worst one to reincarnate to, like a prison planet. And you learn so much when you're here. It's like, this part is my own input. It's almost like going through 2 or 3 lifetimes somewhere else, because those are a little bit easier to trip through, where this one is a struggle. And you can see it. It's all around you, folks. Light workers, you got to be feeling the heaviness right now. Just keep pushing through it. Keep swimming. Keep swimming. You're not swimming alone. You're not out there alone. Might feel like it sometime. All right. So we're kind of over, but let me see if I can show you this one. This one's not very long. I really like this one. Now, choice. Okay, this is a short one. Let me show you this. Communicating too. I wanted to get into communicating about different ways now that they're communicating more modern times, like we talked about phone calls from the dead, and we've talked about messages from the dead, emails, maybe, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy on the typewriter over and over and over again. A message. It could be simple as writing on a mirror, like in Cabin 22, help me. Any of those kind of things. That's all communications in different ways. So many different kinds, right? You don't think about it like this. When you really start thinking about how many different ways ghosts can communicate, whether it's just visually or through other senses, a cold breeze, a touch, a breeze on your cheek. I just got done watching Yellowstone. Absolutely fabulous. Beth Dutton is my spirit animal. I love her so much. I just can't even stand it. So anyway, it ended wonderful. No spoiler alerts, but oh my God. I can't wait to watch it again. And it was so well done. And for all the reasons it was done, I think they did a great job pulling it all together at the end. But here's the deal. Why the hell did I bring that up? So I started thinking about Yellowstone and I got totally off track. I don't get goo crazy over shows, but that one was well done. I liked it a lot. And I was glad I got to see the ending, you know, with all that thing, with all the stuff. Who cares? It was horses and cowboys and jeans and cowboy boots and Beth Dutton, you know. Like I said, she's my spirit animal. But that story in itself is about choices and all these crossroads. It's like family, you know, the family name, the land, the this, and all the different choices. And eventually at the end of that road, you've looked back and you've gone, my God, what have I done to hold on to what I had, and what have I accomplished? And at some point in time, like in that story, Casey went through a vision quest and had this point in time where he said, you're going to have two roads you're going to have to pick. Well, we all have that. And sometimes we had more than one in our life. And we have to make choices. It's all these little choices and what we do about them and what we do once we get there. You know, how are we going to handle that? You know, that's real big. We just watched Fallen on my Rumble channel. We do Tuesday night at the movies. And our first one was Fallen with Denzel Washington, John Goodman, Sutherland, what's his damn name? Not Kiefer, the daddy. Donald Sutherland. The whole point and premise of this is there's an ancient demon, been around forever, kind of hooked onto this family because they were challenged by the family. The father lost the battle. The daughter kind of studied over time to kind of take up the battle, but it's kind of a bloodline thing. And it's also kind of a thing of, once you are paying attention to it, it starts paying attention to you, especially if you're going to try to battle it. So that's part's very true. Also, another part that's very true is the way that this thing would jump into people. I call them jumpers. This is a different type of jumper. From what I really mean, I'm talking usually about human ghosts that jump into people to have a couple of minutes of whatever and then back out, you know. This is a little different. And it had trouble getting into certain people. So you would see this thing go through. Basically, it's just a feeling and a wind and a sound. But you can see that with the camera movements that it was trying to get into certain people, would avoid them and jump real quick into somebody else, touch the next person and jump into that person, blah, 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 blah. That's for real. What do I mean by that? What did he say earlier? All of this stuff is all around all the time. So when get all broke down and you're mad and you're driving in the car and you start hearing those things like, shouldn't have let him say that to you. I can't believe you let him get away with that. Did she really say, what did she mean by that? What's going on? It's like the old cartoons where they had the little angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. So how do you combat that? Here's a test I want you to do. Before we leave tonight, I'm going to play this one last one. But before we play that, I want to tell you this. Do a little test. If that's you, and it's coming from you, I want you to assess, because every individual is going to be different. When you hear negative stuff, where does it come into your head? Are you hearing it behind you, like a surround sound from behind you? Are you hearing it in your head, in the front of your head? Are you hearing it like a sound, like you would turn towards it because it came from this direction? Take a moment and pause and try to sort that. And the more you try to do it, 2 or 3 times, it'll start coming to you. Hey, wait a minute. Every time I get a negative thought, it's coming this way. Then I want you to do the second thing. The second thing is tell yourself a joke. Think about a joke, a spot in a movie that made you laugh. I don't know, just immediately have a couple in your back pocket of your mind, you know, that you can pull out if you need it. Okay. And, you know, think about, you know, the movie The Jerk, where Steve Martin's jumping up and down and going, he hates cans, and it makes you giggle. Or some other thing that makes you laugh, you know. God knows it's going to be different for everybody. But that thing that just you can't help but pop a smile, you know, it may be a little laugh. Some of the strangest things get me, and I just laugh like crazy on, you know, certain lines, and I'll say it, all right, here's a joke. I'm going to give you a joke. It's old, but I'm going to try it because this made me laugh all week. I mean, I'm watching all this devastation on here. I'm researching this, and I'm researching laws and patents and when people pulled insurance, and what insurance companies pulled insurance when and for what law, and what Newsom did, and and I'm doing all these dates and pulling all this like evidence of just the dastardly deeds these some bitches are up to, and I'm going through all this darkness, and I just kept having this joke all week. So here's the joke. All right, so this guy is stupid. So this guy, he's sitting on a porch, and he's just an old, minding his own business country man. He's sitting on his porch, and he's doing whatever, but he's whittling. Okay, car pulls up and goes, I usually don't get company. What the hell's this? And this is big old black SUV, and these guys in suits and stuff get out, and he come walking up towards him, and the guy's got a real attitude, and he walks up to him, hey, are you such and such? Sure I am, all my life. And he says, well, I've got this here warrant to search your property. I need to see your back field. We hear you're growing some marijuana back there. He says, well, I don't know about any of that weed. There's some weeds back there, but that's about it. I wouldn't go back there if I were you, though. And the guy got real mad. The suit got mad, and the guy behind him kind of, puffed out a little bit and leaned in. And the guy says, look, I got this warrant, I got this here badge, and I can go anywhere I damn well please. Do you understand me? The guy says, I understand you fine. I see your badge, bright and shiny clear. He said, but I still wouldn't go in that back field if I were you. He says, do you understand what I'm telling you? You look at my badge, look at my warrant. I can go anywhere I damn well please. I'm going to go right up. I'll march right up in that field, and I'm going to pull out all of those weed plants you got back there, and then I'm going to take you out of here in cuffs. And the guy said, well, okay, you can go where you want to go, officer, but I'm going to tell you again, I wouldn't go back there. And he says, I'm going. And him and his partner just start heading down the trail, and they're walking down the trail with all this attitude and everything else. Pretty soon, he starts hearing him scream. And he stands up and looks on the porch and sees him. Yup, there he goes. Both two guys in suits running across the field. The big old bull chasing them across the field. The guy yells out, cups his hands, and goes, show him your badge. Show him your badge. It's still funny. Oh. Anyhow, you see that big old bull chasing him? Oh, my gosh, it's so funny. Oh, gosh. So anyhow. Yeah. Show him your badge. I can see it. So here's the deal. Think of something that makes you laugh, and then laugh. And if the negative thoughts go away or back off, probably wasn't you. It was probably something trying to push you to take that next step, to get a little darker, to put out a little bit of your light. Now, it doesn't mean if you make that choice that you can't pull it all back and fix it. I'm not saying that. But sometimes when people start going down that and they take 2-3 steps, before you know it, they're a half a mile in and looking back, and it's hard to get back now. Now you gotta struggle to get back. Hey, hanging. So that's what I'm saying. Test it out. If laughing or singing or something like that, a high vibrational thing, makes that stop, it probably wasn't you, and you're probably not responsible. So there's your joke. So as soon as you start getting upset or get road rage, you start thinking, show them your badge, show them your badge. And imagine those 2 FBI agents running across that field in mud in their Armani $2,000, $5,000 Armani suits, because they make a good bank. Even the rank and file make good bank. Better than you and me, I guarantee it. Well, I don't know. You guys might be making good bank too. Better than me. So if it goes away, it wasn't you. It was another influence, and it could be anything. That doesn't mean you're in trouble. That doesn't mean anything's, look, some always trying to get low-hanging fruit. Don't be low-hanging fruit. Climb higher up the damn tree like a monkey. Okay? All right. I want to show you this last one. I wanted to get into the whole debate of, should we help people into light and all that stuff? And we touched on it a little bit, but it probably deserves a little bit more time. So we'll probably leave a lot of this finishing up with Steve and add more to it. So I had some really great stories, and I don't want to rush through them. But one of the things that means the most to me is this, and I'll finish with this, and I know we're over, and I'm sorry, but I want to leave you with a good thought. And the good thought is this. I say it all the time. Hans Holzer said, I'm not afraid of ghosts. They're just people in need of help. If they're people in need of help, part of the soul that's trapped, some of it went on. Again, this is all irrelevant to the fact that there is a human being that's here. And if it was you, if it was somebody like the famous Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol, and there he is struggling to try to break his chains and loosen some of the chains through good deeds and an absolute need to do so. He says in the actual book, I believe, that the chains he forged in life are his forever, but there is some information within there too, within the text, that says that he, by doing some of the things he's doing, he can't quite do as much as he'd like, but he is gaining some by helping Scrooge. So I see that in my life all the time with spirit that come to help the living or come to help other spirits that are trapped. All of that being true, I don't understand why people get so hung up on other people wanting to give a ghost knowledge. We are here to explain to you that this is what's happened to you. This is where you are now. This is the time you're in now. This is what's happened maybe to your loved ones. It's been 100 years. It's been 200 years. It's been whatever. They are more than likely here in these, and then you try to get their spirit guides and get information and everything else to try to help them. But again, it's like therapy, and you're trying to discern what this individual phantom needs, this ghost needs, because the spirits are usually coming through, and usually they've got their stuff together. They've already been crossed over. So to me, not giving that ghost the information and the knowledge it needs to make a decision on whether or not, with its free will, wants to leave and go into that light with its loved ones and whatever it may be in there for them, who am I to hold back that information? To see that as interrupting their journey is giving yourself, I think, a little bit too much importance in the situation, where it's really just up to the ghost, and it's up to you as another human being to help them sort it. Just like you were sitting down next to somebody who was full of anxiety and lost at a bus stop sitting on the bench. And you said some encouraging words and said, man, that might not be a good idea. You can do this to get yourself out of the mess you're in, right? Just in case you hadn't heard. Here's the tools you might need to get out of the mess you're in. I'm going to go on my merry way now, but I'm going to leave you with that information. You decide. Well, you can decide in death just like you do in life. And the things we decide here in life will affect us in death. That's something to consider. That's something to try to understand. And we can do better from this point on. And if you're here as a light worker, you've been through some things to get to the point you're at now. It takes a while to build up that armor and that knowledge. You see? But I think that anything that feels that right can't be wrong. We might not have all the answers, but when I feel that energy decide to cross into that light, and their darkness and their cold and their anxiety all goes away, and there's just this melting of this wonderful warmth and love light, and you feel that energy lift and everything in the room changes. Tell me how that's wrong and shouldn't be done. And why wouldn't you want somebody to try if it was you or someone you loved? This right here, this little story that we're going to end on tonight, has so much emotion in it. We've seen it before a couple years ago, but I'm going to play it again. It's about 10 minutes and then we're out. And it's about a man who stumbled into, had the knowledge, but wasn't prepared ahead of time for what was going to hit him. And it affected him so much emotionally. But he did it. And it's amazing to me that human beings are still alive that have this much emotion for strangers, because what I've seen all week, you need to see something of this amount of compassion to try to balance some of it out.
I'm born and raised in Kingston. I lived here all my life. I've traveled quite a bit all over the United States and all over Canada. I've liked other places and that, and I like to visit other places, but Kingston's basically my hometown. Maybe because not only did I grow up here, but I also have a lot of knowledge of the history of the city of Kingston. Well, I've always been interested in history, whether it's the American Civil War or Kingston history, and Kingston has a lot of history. The very early 1800s, when we had so many Irish ships coming over and Scottish and so on, people were coming over to build the Rideau Canal, but they were coming over, they were dying of typhoid and malaria, all kinds of diseases like that. And Kingston didn't have a cemetery, except for where this Skelton Park was. So they used that as a cemetery. And they used it right up until about 1893. And in 1893, they decided to move that cemetery, and they were exhuming the graves. And the people in the neighborhood were complaining because of the stench, and money was short. So they just bulldozed down all the tombstones. It was not an easy task, and at one point was finally given up. And so they just covered it over with grass and sod or earth or whatever, and it became a park. So they just left them. They don't know where they are. They estimate today there's somewhere around 1,400, at least that many, or if not more, graves. Unless you study the history of Kingston, you would never know that that was Kingston's very first cemetery. Skelton Park isn't a place that I would go to in particular, but a friend of mine was visiting from out of town, named Margaret, who was into sending people into the light. But one of the things that they do is visit graveyards and walk into the graveyards, and if there's any spirits there that have not yet moved on into the light, they send them to the light. And whether I believe it or I don't believe it, I guess I certainly believe it now, because that particular night, it involved me. Skelton Park isn't a place that I would go to in particular, but a friend of mine was visiting from out of town named Margaret, who was into sending people into the light. But one of the things that they do is visit graveyards and walk into the graveyards, and if there's any spirits there that have not yet moved on into the light, they send them to the light. This one particular night when Margaret was in town, she said, "Do you have any more haunted places you can take me to?" Because I had did this sort of thing before. In the daytime, I had stopped at certain little cemeteries and let Margaret walk through the cemetery, and then she'd come back and get in the car, and away we'd go. I had no experiences or feelings about it one way or the other. There is a place, I said, that not too many people know about. It's called Skelton Park. It was nicknamed Skelton Park because it used to be a graveyard. And I said, there are a lot of people still buried there. Well, can we go there? So here I was, 10 o'clock at night, drizzly, rain, foggy, pulled up to the park. And I said, this is it. And I said, how long are you going to be? She said, oh, I don't know, whatever it takes. I said, okay, I'll be waiting. So out she got. I saw her going, and then all of a sudden she just disappeared. It's hard to keep track of time when these things happen. I want to say 5 minutes, but maybe it was 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, the wind started blowing, the car started shaking a little bit. And then, sometimes when you recall things, it's difficult. Then all of a sudden I seen these men, women, children reaching out, and I'm looking at them through the windshield. They're reaching, and I'm not scared of them because I don't feel evil from them. And they were in, like, not clothes that we would wear today. The clothes were tattered or ripped, or maybe they were very poor people. Remember, they come over on these immigrant ships. They might have had just the clothes they had on their back. And when they died, that's the clothes they were buried in. And they were worn and they were tattered, and that's probably why I was seeing that. Then, of course, I started hearing I call it wailing. You know, help us, help us. It was kind of an eerie sensation to be looking at these people, reaching out for you. It's like, please help me. I think that's sort of the communication I got from these people, is that they were trying to say, we're here, we're here, we're here. Can you hear us? And that's the part I think that bothered me, because there was young children. I didn't believe for a minute that my life was in danger. I just looked at them and wished that there was some way I could help them. I just knew that Margaret had something to do with this. And I thought, gee, I wish you'd hurry up and come back here. They sort of started fading. And bang, they were all gone. The car door opened up and Margaret got in. I was crying, and Margaret says, what's wrong? I said, don't you ever bring me here again. Never. I said, I don't want any part of this. She said, what happened? I stepped on the accelerator and started getting away from the park as quick as possible. And I proceeded to tell her the story. And I said, did you master what you come to do? Oh, yes, she said, there were a lot of spirits there. She said, I sent a lot of them into the light. But she said, there's still a lot of them there that I need to come back. I said, not with me, you know. I think to myself, do people get stuck in between here and there? And if so, are that many people buried in Skelton Park? Are they still waiting to go into the light? I've never been back to Skelton Park since. I can go back in the daytime, but I don't think I'd ever go back on a dark, rainy night again, or any time at night for that matter.
John wonders if spirits can be stuck between this world and the next. Our expert says the attachment to this world may be to the dead person's physical remains, and this might be more intense if something violent or particularly tragic was connected with their death. John and Chuck were aware of the history surrounding their ghostly encounters, but for both of them, the ghost's appearance radically changed their connection to the past, a past that will live on through them.
Today, it would be a much different story. Today, when human remains are found, whether it's in a wall from a building they're tearing down or whatever it is, today, it means something. These were human beings at one time. These people have a right for us to know when they find these bodies in the woods. Who was this person? What happened to them? I realized, gee, there is another world out there. There are people that have not yet went into that light.
Amen, brother. So here's the thing. Here's this man sitting in a car, and he sees all these people that are lost and gathered together because they probably went at the same time. This happens to be a group of ghosts that are probably aware of each other. this small group. The others I can't speak on. The lady went and she said she crossed quite a few, but there's more there. Obviously, she needed to spend more time and come back and continue what she was doing or work on them some more. We don't know. We don't have the context to that. What we do have is this man was left alone in the car and saw that and felt this, in my opinion, the overrush of emotion that they were probably feeling and they were putting out there. So he's picking that up. He's more than likely an empath or a light worker of some sort, because he's with this woman and he's somewhat interested in the topic, and we tend to draw toward it, of course. So he's feeling it and he's picking up this overwhelming emotion, and it's profound to him. But to tell those people that they couldn't go there and they have no right to the knowledge of, yes, we can guide you out. We can call your spirit guides. We can call your loved ones. We can get you to realize to look up and, into the light and that kind of thing. And again, it's a different process. Not everything is the same for each one. It's a process to getting to that, to hooking them back into the love energy that still exists. You don't know what they've been through. So again, individual. But to tell them that you can't do that. You can't go and comfort those ghosts. You can't, you have to leave them there. They're on their journey and you can't get involved. Hold up, back up a minute. That theory, okay, I'm listening to it. I've heard many people speak their thoughts on that. Here's mine. If I'm affecting their journey because I want to say, hey, guess what? How you doing? I see you. I feel what you're going through. I get the fact that, you're doing your thing, but here's the deal. Do you know you're dead? Do you know that you probably have other things you could be doing that's a little bit better than just repeating this same thing over and over again and hanging out in this dirty old, cellar? Here's some info for you. It's yours if you want it. This is what you can do. Just wanted to stop by and let you know that I'm going on about my thing. Some people see that like Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door at, 7:00 on a Saturday morning, that's an invasive. Well, you're interrupting their journey. Hold on. What if it's part of my journey to do exactly what I just said I was going to do? What if that's what I was put here for? What if my journey is different than your journey? My beliefs are different than your beliefs. My understanding is different than your understanding. My consciousness is on a different level than yours. Not better, just different. And I understand that I'm not going to walk past a ghost in need, reaching out their hands and saying, we've been here 150 years. We died of scarlet fever. All we know is our bodies are in this hole all thrown in together because bodies are treated with respect now. I wish that was true. I love the fact that that guy believes that, and that's the way it should be. But we just had a story about developments being, put on bodies and just the headstones removed. There's a big movie made about it, at least about the subject. So what if it's my journey to help these lost souls? Does it make me better than anybody? Does it make me different? It just makes me, I'm here for a certain task that you might not understand. And maybe your job is to be a skeptic and to say that we don't have the right to do this and that reptiles and praying mantis aliens are in charge of all the souls and are running some kind of weird soul banking system. And we're just, shooting around in these, cylinders and tubes shooting all over the place and winding up in different bodies to be a slave until we die and then come back and do it again. Some meaningless circle matrix kind of deal. Well, maybe it's true, but maybe it's part of my journey to kick through that damn illusion and say, what if we're all just part of the same consciousness? And if that's part of me, I'm going to do everything I can to be kind and loving, and as hard as it may be sometimes, or I'm going to go full on Beth Dutton on their ass. Maybe, just maybe, I score double when I go, no, I'm going to be kind because I could have done this. It would have been much easier for me to do this. It's much harder for me to pull all that in, find my inner light, and go, okay. Thank you so much for the exercise in my self-control. I really appreciate you being here on this part of my journey. I've had quite enough this, so you better just go now, because I can't hold it back much longer, kind of thing. If that's the way you're going through, fine. But you're trying. We're all trying. We're all trying to keep the light on. But I don't think this conversation and this debate is that cut and dry where you can just say, we don't get involved with their journey. That's part of their journey. I've heard that before, and I get it. I so get it. But this is my journey too, and it's your journey too. And we're all supposed to be learning together. And whatever path we're walking, whatever small part of this, your mileage may vary, that walk we're on, if it's part of yours to do that, then I consider that a challenge and an exercise in strengthening my belief in free will and knowledge is power. And if that was me, I'd want an invasive, nosy bitch to stick their nose in and go, hey, honey, you're dead. And I know the way out. Prove me wrong with science. I love y'all. Don't worry. Ghosts believe in you. Love you all. Hit the like. Get over there on the Rumble. Tuesday night we are doing Tuesday night at the movies, only on Rumble. For now, we're trying to do Tuesdays. I'm trying to get into the flow, and then I'd like to add a Thursday if I can. Studio situation allow. And I'm trying to work in as much as I can. So that's why I'll do a movie during the week with like no mic, no sound, but I'll be in the chat talking to y'all because that's what I can get away with right now with the certain conditions. Okay. So I want to do that. I want to grow it a little bit bigger, and I want to add another one, but we're just talking about current events. Love to talk to you about this fire and everything else. If I can do it this week, I will. But it seems like every 2-3 days, everything changes so much, or something else. Barely just got done with the damn. Are they gone? The plasma orbs and the drones, are they coming back? Did anybody know to leave a note? Are we good? Did they drop stuff? I'm hearing they did. We'll talk about that too. And I will tell you right now, Cisco salsa, make it, eat it. Lots of raw garlic, boost your immune. Make sure you got plenty of the claw. Don't forget, you can double that if you're fighting something off. You can add to it, add to your doses. If you're fighting something off, you want to do every 4 hours for like 5 days, 3 minimum, but at least 5. It's not going to hurt you. If it does, back it off. You be the regulation with that. That's the way the claw is. Look up clinical studies and research groups like put in all the information they found out. There's an amazing amount of information out about claw and garlic. So raw garlic, breathe it. I'm hearing a lot of people are still having upper respiratory stuff. Chop it, put it in a Ziploc bag and hold it. And then put it out the mouth, in the nose, out the mouth. Do it about 5 or 6 times. Get all those garlic fumes up into those sinuses and get that stuff cleared out of your lungs, okay? When lights go down in the city, yeah, and the sun shines on the bay, right? All right, so Tuesday night, this Tuesday, I hope you will join us on Rumble for the movie. The movie, thanks to my movie elves. I don't know whether they want to be named, but they know who they are, so thank you, thank you. The movie will be, one of my very favorites, one of the best ghost movies put out there. It's very good and true to life, is I See Dead People, Sixth Sense. So please join me for that. It also happens to be my birthday. So if you would like to celebrate, Scott, shut up, my 50th, no, I'm lying. Just leave it there. Birthday. I'm going out to dinner. I'm coming back to watch a movie with you guys. So thank you so much. Yep, PSYOP. They're all PSYOPs, Scott. It's just so amazing. It's a Psy war, honey. We're in a Psy war, and I'm so here for it. I was just, lean into that torpedo, baby. That's what I'm doing. I mean, we're all just, let's figure it out. Yeah. I mean, luckily we've been training for this. You know, what's the Joan of Arc thing? I'm not afraid. I was born for this. I'm here. I have front row seats. Let's do this. We're getting through it. Let's keep the lights on. I love you all. Be here Tuesday. I'm going to try to come up with another one, but for right now, we're going to try to do it every Tuesday. So get over there and Rumble. Thank you guys so much. I'm trying to also get another setup to where I can actually see the chat because I miss your Rumble rants. I mean, if you put something there and I catch it later, I want to thank all my members over there. Thank you so much. You're keeping this channel on. And thank you for the support, the kind comments, and everything else. See you here tomorrow night with Mr. Steve Stockton. And we're going to continue this talk. I find it very interesting with the different communications and trying to learn how to navigate through this crazy spiritual warfare. And at the same time, learning about ghosts, because if we're learning about how to help ghosts and what ghosts are about and what they're doing, maybe we can prevent being one. Because I sure as hell don't want to get stuck to this son of a bitch. How about you? I love y'all. See y'all tomorrow night. Let's see, what are we gonna do? What a groovy tube, what a bazaar. What do I have pulled up here? All right, let's groovy tube our way out of here. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much, mods. You are the absolute best. Thank you so much. Hit the like on the way out if you haven't. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We're going to do a lot of fun things here. We're going to talk about a lot of crazy stuff, but we're going to help each other through it, and we're going to learn together. Love you all. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here.